Closed.
Oh, I see recording.
Hello. We are now recording. Good evening. This is Reverend Elizabeth Mora, and it's Monday, March 23rd, 2020. And this class is What Are You Praying For? And I'm so excited that my dear friend Bobby Severson is on the line. Class is going to be posted on YouTube, so if those who aren't able to be with us live want to go ahead and at least watch the content and get some support in their prayer life, especially during these challenging times, that's my hope, is that this will be something that will lift people up, even if it helps one or two people right now. We will now, especially since this is a class on prayer, let us open in prayer. A time to turn within and to welcome all that is, returning back into a conscious knowing of the truth that is always there, the God that is always present in every moment. And we simply dip in and out of our awareness about that. And now we are fully aware of the goodness that is living in us in every situation. And we are aware that as we are going through this challenging time, and this time where people are suffering with the COVID-19 virus, with a regular flu virus, and just general discomfort with businesses shutting down and a new way of being internally in our homes, we bring the peace and the calm of God forward in a greater way right now. And Bobby and I connected here tonight. We send our love out to all those who are struggling in whatever way, in whatever corner. And we send love, and we know the truth for every individual, that the life and the love and the power and the wisdom of God is present for them. And for all of us, back into a unity and a oneness of beingness with all things, to create from this moment a better world for all of us. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to switch over and share my screen so that you can see the presentation. The slide, good old, it wouldn't be a class if there weren't slides, right, Bobby?
That's right.
PowerPoint. So you're seeing the PowerPoint, Bobby?
I am.
Okay, great. And I can switch back to me.
You're up here in my right-hand corner.
Looking at slides.
Okay.
Oh, okay, good. You can still see me. Great.
Right.
All right. What are you praying for? We're starting class with, we've just done our prayer, with an actual question of what are you praying for right now? And I, of course, pictured a few more of us on the line right now. And so I wanted to get a sense of what's present for you and for me, Bobby, with everything that's going on, or maybe just in our regular life. What are you praying for these days? What's up for you?
Well, obviously these days, praying for, all the victims and families of the coronavirus. But I'm also would like to really focus on some healing prayers for our government so that we can come together and get something done.
That's great.
We're also up in the air with everything, and the states are fighting with the federal government and can't get support and things like that. And it just seems so very sad. So I just, would like to put prayer support around that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I thought I heard a bing. I thought that might be another person. Maybe
No,
that
I
was
think that was my phone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I'm so with you. Whoops, let me make sure give me a second to make sure I am coming back to you correctly. Let me go back. There we go. I got off, so I just need to get back to share screen. All right, we're gonna pause for a minute while I figure out. Okay. I am sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front. There we go. All right, so government healing, and we were talking about the not being able to get anything done right now, and definitely things seem to have, kind of taken a step backwards today. So let's take a moment and let's do that. We've got a request for prayer and something that we want to work with. Let's hold that in our hearts for a moment. A prayer for healing. A prayer for healing. In addition to the healing of the bodies, a healing of the minds and the hearts at the highest level of government in our country, and even those around the globe, as there are differences of opinion, but especially right now, right here, president, the governors, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the House, the Senate, Health and Human Services, all of the departments involved. We send that same blanket of calm and love that we can send to an individual to all of these situations and departments involved. The great calm of 2020. Let us see us flattening the curve, not only of COVID-19, but of the rancor in our country. The Christ in us greets the Christ in each person and calls forth in them their highest and their best. Let us continue to lead with love and compassion and open hearts and open minds. And know that even in these difficult moments that God is walking through it with us, there is a presence, there is a wisdom, there is a goodness that is still there, always available to tap into. And the more of us that tap into it, the more powerful the ripple. Let us send an energetic for peace and harmony and completion in Washington. And so it is. Amen. And as we look at that issue and any issue, we can, this is great, Bob, because we can use this issue, throughout our it to this issue. So what I like to start with is concern. What's my concern? And whatever it is that's caused me to turn to prayer. And sometimes it's not a concern. Sometimes it's a celebration and a joy. And that's the easy part. yeah. We got the joy. We got the thankfulness prayer down. Or we can cover that another time. What we're talking about now, I'm addressing more, is how we address something that we're worried about or upset about, or a concern that we're trying to get over. And if I start with asking myself, well, what is my concern? Let me acknowledge my human thought. And while Charles Fillmore might call that an error thought, that's not my favorite word. My human thought, my very natural, understandable thought or feeling around the government right now. I would fear. I'm afraid right now. Is there a word or a thought around it that you could, what is your concern?
Well, I'm trying to stay away from anger, but there is some of that. It's like, why
What
can't
if you
everybody
could
just
just
get
be,
along?
okay. I think that's legit. You're not going to stay there. I know
Right.
you. We're not
Right.
going to stay in anger, but it's okay to admit it for this moment, So you're angry. I'm, what did I say? Concerned,
You-
frustrated.
You're afraid, right? Well, I'm, yeah, afraid too, but a little bit of anger behind that
I'm
too.
afraid. There you go. Yeah, I bet most of us have all that mixed in, no matter what side, quote unquote, you're on. Oh, I'm concerned that we're overreacting. I'm ticked off that we're overreacting. I'm ticked off that we're underreacting. Here we are, we're divided again. And for right now, whatever it is, I'm afraid, I'm ticked off, whatever. Okay, that's that is. And my next question is, what do I know in truth? And that may be a big leap sometimes. And when we've been at this prayer thing for a while, like Bobby and I have, Bobby's prayer chaplain and head of the chaplains. And so what do I know in truth? That's how I switch over into that affirmative prayer. So I could start with, I'm so angry right now and I'm worried and frustrated. And what I know in truth is blank. And that's where I start to fill in that affirmative prayer. And I may not even be there at first. So I may start with, Dear God, that's my way to start. Dear God, please help me with this situation that I am relating to. Initially, I know that I need the help. That's what I'm most praying for, because until I get myself clear, I'm in the way. So I'm not knowing the truth yet. I'm stuck in the appearance of the moment, which is legitimate on a human level. And then how do I switch over from the relative to the absolute to say, and what I know in truth is, and I might say that the Christ is in everyone in this situation, even when I don't agree with what they're doing. So the Christ is present in everyone. Um, what is another truth that I might know about the way the government's behaving right now?
Um, that's a good one.
Actually, let me back it up. What's a truth that I know about myself?
Well, like you said, that Christ is present, God is present in every situation, and we are stronger than any appearance of what is going on.
Oh, that's great. Writing that down. We're stronger than any appearance that's going on. Another one came to me too, and that is the teaching of divine order.
Mhm.
And and the divine order, not to misunderstand that as God has this plan that God is working out, from his castle in the sky. But there is a divine order, mind idea action, that as our minds, as we are taking hold of in God mind and expressing them out into the world, there is an order to that happening. And so the order in my world is, what thoughts do I want to be holding to be creating? And even when I see that in the outer world, it's not looking so good, without blaming, metaphysically, I know that's because not good information is being pulled down and put out.
Mhm.
Like, we're getting exactly what we should be getting. And that's still a divine order, because then when the consciousness and the thoughts can shift, that will help the outcomes shift. Sometimes the metaphysical truth isn't pretty, it doesn't mean that it's always going, divine order doesn't always smooth. It means that it's orderly, and it means that it's going in the order that it should. But still, there's some lessons to learn, or we're not in a place of oneness, we're in a place of unity right now. So if we were to actually get oneness coming out of that, then that would actually be illogical. So this is the most divine order of things right now. It is in divine order, and it's working according to the laws that we know, not the spiritual laws. So I don't know, how does that lend with you, Bobby? Is that helpful? Is that not helpful?
No, I no, that's very helpful. I with both of us having been in unity for as long as we have been, we when we get into situations like this, like you say, we don't have to stay there, and we can go back to um, again the truth of what we know, and uh, and take comfort in that we have the 12 powers within us, the divine strength, divine wisdom, divine understanding. I fall back on that a lot to help me get through situations. And I see it for other people. So when I do pray for the government or the our leaders, I'm always praying for them to have divine wisdom, divine understanding, that it's there, that I'm praying that they can recognize it and work together.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And the 12 powers, I'm with you, that I just just keep cycling back on. And wisdom, is such a big one. Yeah, that divine wisdom and imagination. And I'm also thinking about the teaching of Abraham Hicks, that we don't get everything right in that moment. Sometimes we do, sometimes it's instantaneous, but sometimes it takes time to work and to find the way to be okay in the process, and try to find the joy along the way. Like, ooh, look at our government stumbling. And I heard something last night on television. The Doris Goodwin, she's a historian, and she was telling how past presidents struggled during big, through the Depression, through the war, the beginning of a big crisis like this, struggle and stumble. And I'm not trying to pick out Trump right now, but I'm just saying that there's a.
I'm going to go.
Sorry, leaving. Okay, bye.
I'm going to text you to open this door for me, so
Okay.
I don't have to.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Arturo's leaving to get dinner. It's running out. Shh, don't tell anybody. So anyway, the point was just that this is common, and dealing with something this big, that other presidents are governments struggle during these times, and then usually, they get on board. So I'm like, okay, this is the incubation period, and I'm glad I'm not in charge. And here we go, so we're in one of those moments is how it struck me.
Mm-hmm.
Our government is learning and stumbling, just like I learn and stumble. It's just hard to watch at this level. So
Right, 'cause you don't
back to our
expect
slides then. No, exactly. That many people, and that smart of people, and with the resources that they have, I would have thought it would have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. And I know that it's still an outpicturing of the common collective that's going in, where we're at in consciousness. And it's an outpicturing, of what's going on internally in our global consciousness. So again, without meaning it in a blaming way, like as a reverse looking at it. Yeah. And so I keep then returning back to the truth that I know. And let me share then the next few slides here. Oops, come on now, go forward. There we go. All right, so let me offer a few definitions of prayer from some of your favorites.
Mm-hmm.
This one is Charles. Prayer is an opening of communication between the mind of man and the mind. Meditation, silence, concentration are mental attitudes that enter into and form prayer. So that is, that's a very traditional definition,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one on here, and you'll see kind of where we go with this. So, because even here we have a separation, the mind of man, the mind of God, and that's, we're really one, and it's it as a separation. Prayer is not a means of arousing God to action, but the process of waking up from our drowsiness so we can see ourselves mirrored darkly but face to face. A waking up from our drowsiness to ourself. My teacher, Robert Brummett, calls it a conscious turning toward God, conscious turning toward what's divine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so another definition here from Mary Kupferle. Prayer is not for the purpose of changing God, but to help us turn our innermost thoughts and feelings into the conditioned state of awareness that enables God's healing, strength, giving presence to work through us. So when I think about the issue that you and I are dealing with right now, of healing, it's only how it's working through me. So, okay, it's not to the purpose to change God, you know, dear God, fix the government. But to help me turn my inner thoughts to the awareness that enables God's healing. So turning my awareness to, while I may not understand all that's going on here, I know that the same God is in me, is in this situation. Help me to see it rightly. And so even to bring my compassion to say, while I thought it would be better, they're stumbling as humans just like I stumble. And if I can help, you know, if I were an expert, I'd be trying to help. If I can at least raise up my consciousness, knowing that it makes a difference somehow energetically in the world, to keep holding the high watch and to speak where I need to speak. Doesn't mean I don't write a letter or comment or post something on Facebook, and my awareness is still, it's okay, we're operating here, and I know we can operate here, and I'm going to keep calling us to rise up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me share a couple more questions. Charles says, it is your mission to express all that you can imagine God to be. If you can imagine that it is possible to God, it is possible to you. So any prayer that I say is about imagining the best of God that's possible in me, that's possible in anyone. And that's one of our prayers. Express all that I can imagine. So if I could picture it in God, it's possible. And then we've evolved in unity to what I'm calling prayer 2.0, sort of prayer 1.0, and some of the newer thoughts that have been coming in. The ones from Tom, and we ask the question, am I communicating with a presence and a power beyond myself, or reflecting upon something deep in my consciousness? Very powerful. Calls that. And Tom calls that the let it out, let it in paradox. Are you letting God in, that's something above and beyond, transcendent, in, or am I letting the immanent God out? Transcendent and immanent God. And of course, can it be both? This is something that we had a lot of fun debating in seminary. Letting God out, letting in. Any thoughts on that one, Bobby?
Well, I'm wondering, can it be both? Did you come to that conclusion?
I think so. That's where I'm at. And I think there are times, depending, that it's more one or the other.
That, yeah, I really
Right?
agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes when you're really low, like if you're at the low of low and you can't get in touch with that immanent God, that you are, as we say, praying to the God of the ceiling. You know, knowing where you are. I'm on my knees right now because I'm sort of at bottom. Let me pray up, dear God, please help. That's an okay prayer, especially if that's the best I can do right now, that's the best I can do. Because God still knows, whatever God is, right? God still knows I'm a divine. There's no needs help, God isn't like, wait, you aren't knowing your true self, so I can't help, It's even in that act of praying, we're already making a move in consciousness. And then as I move along, and that's where I've kind of come with prayer lately, I along up the ladder, maybe, depending on where I start, to realization, the step of realization in our prayer steps, in realization of the truth. It goes back to what we started at. What do I know in truth? Sometimes I can start at truth, sometimes I can't. So, dear God, help me. I'm so upset about the government. And I know that nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. What really matters is still fine, what will always be fine. And again, it can be a little bit of both, and we can make a run around the track sometimes. And so Tom says the definition of prayer is determined by, like the quantum wave and particle, is divinity encountered within, when we go within, and in the cosmos when our attention goes to the heavens. What is prayer? It depends. Just like any word we try to define in especially the spiritual world. What is God? It depends.
Right.
Who are you asking? Who's it, right? What's Jesus? Prayer. So it's wide open, the field's wide open, and in unity. We have some working, definitions that we tend to be around, like prayer is affirmative. The most powerful form of prayer that we have found is affirmative prayer.
Right.
And so we do still tend to move from asking to knowing. And where I've landed lately, and Bobby, have you read How to Pray to God by Linda Martella Whitson, or covered that at all?
Yes, we have.
I figured a good church like Valley would.
How to talk to God without praying, or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that
And
one was.
I didn't bring that book home, or yeah. How was it for you?
It's been, let's see, I think it was about a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe, but that was a real interesting read. I mean, that was, it was like, okay, I've come this far in my unity studies and everything, and then then we're throwing this in here, and I felt like I was always kind of praying that way. It wasn't really beseeching and things like that. It really was, more of just knowing, having that inner knowing that this is it. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. So, but yeah, that was a good book. So.
Great. Yeah, it was very provocative, and I enjoyed it. And then sometimes I disagreed with it, and I mostly agreed with it. And I'm still with it. I want to say I still struggle with it at times,
Right. Yeah.
I don't pray that way all the time, but I definitely am moving. I'm always moving more in that direction. And so where, so for those that may be listening to this later that don't know about what we're talking about, the book, How to Pray Without
How to,
by Linda Martella Whitsitt. What's that?
no, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So How to Pray Without Talking to God, to be fully in affirmative prayer and knowing the God within. So, more of a passive voice, instead of, dear God, please help me, say, I affirm that I have the help within that I need to overcome. So affirmative statements of strength and power and that from within you, instead of an outside God to come in. And yet many of us still, experience God as outside and or inside. And while we know God's not a person, we still value feeling a relationship with the divine. And so all of us kind of working on our language, and Linda encouraging us to move more, to know our power. And I do agree with that. And even so, but knowing that not there, if there is a there, I'm not a completely all the time, as she's suggesting, praying that way. I'm okay if within a prayer I can move. So this line of to move from asking to knowing, that could be overall in my prayer practice. I'm moving to not be such an asker in prayer to being more of a knower, already knowing my Christness.
Mhm.
That if I'm also within a prayer can make that move. So it might start with, dear God, I am so struggling with this. Please help me with blank, getting over this. Okay, now I've made my asking statement. And while that might not be ideal, it's where I'm at. Then, and what do I know? Back to the second question I asked. What do I know? Well, what do I know that I can state positively and affirmatively about myself? That I am the Christ, that I have what it takes to get through this, whatever those positive things. So if I am doing this work on a regular basis, that no more easily. The spiritual practice, instead of in that up, is going to be harder. Whereas if I'm building my muscle all the way throughout, knowing the magnificence of me and the truth behind everything and what divine order is, now I can more easily move from, oh, I'm so scared, I need to ask for help. Oh wait, I remember, I have the help within me. I've discovered the power within me.
Mhm.
And so I can make that move in a prayer, so that prayer changes me. It may or may not things. Oops, spoiler. It usually does change things. What I know it absolutely changes is my inner consciousness. And that's where everything starts and is ultimately created from. So let me create from the inside out. What we often do is make the mistake of trying to create from the outside in. If only the government would get their act together, I could feel better. Instead, let me feel better, and then let me see what happens with the government. Comments or questions on that one, Bobby?
Yes, yeah, I agree. Let me feel better, and then I can better react to this as well. If I'm feeling better, I can react differently or change my thinking about how I'm feeling about it. So yes, definitely.
Beautiful. Yes. And like you said, how you react to it. That's
Right,
exactly it. Then my reactions will be at a higher level.
right, right,
Yeah. So, because some people might say, well, that's great. Now you feel all la-di-da inside, but so what? Doesn't
right.
matter in the outside world.
Yeah,
But the so what, it does impact the so what, because now I have a better reaction. I'm more resourceful. I'm coming from a place of strength instead of panic.
right.
All right.
And it kind of eliminates that fear that you spoke about earlier. you know, when we first started, that you said you were afraid. I said I had some anger, and, you know, that kind of can eliminate, or possibly not eliminate, but soothe both of those.
It's a great word, soothe. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
So I've put together sort of my, I don't know if this is my working definition or not, but affirmative prayer is a statement that is true, and it is rightly directed consciousness. So as we're working to figure out, you know, how am I praying? Am I doing an affirmative new thought prayer? Well, I'll know it if it's true, if it's always true. So, so even to say, I pray that the government gets their act together, they may or may not. That may not be a true statement or not, but I can pray, know that I will meet this situation in whatever way I will. So a statement about an I am statement about myself, and a divine order statement about the situation, that this situation is in divine order. It is. And what needs to be learned is being learned at the rate that it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And that rate may be frustrating sometimes.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my humans and I, or accepting that at the rate that I can.
Right.
My friend Martha Creek, you know Martha, Bobby? Have you ever met or seen Martha
I
Creek?
think, yes, I have met her, I think. Yeah. She's a beautiful lady, isn't she?
She is. She's a powerful person, one of my favorite teachers, you know, and she says, you cannot outpace your own evolution.
Oh.
None of us can. You know, if you could do better, you do better. If better was possible, I would have done it. If sooner were, you know, I forget if it was Maya Angelou or who said, you know, sooner wasn't possible. I wish I'd gotten this sooner. Sooner wasn't possible. It happened
Oh,
as,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Mm-hmm.
so an affirmative prayer is a statement that is always true. And it's rightly directed consciousness, you know, so looking toward the heaven, or how can I create something more or better, or bring compassion, you know, whatever part of the perennial philosophy of, you know, goodness and beauty and truth and healing and all of the good things in the 12 powers. Is it directed towards that? And is a statement that's true? Then I know I'm on to an affirmative prayer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then what if I'm doing it wrong? You know, so that's a big question in the prayer world. And the short answer is you can't do it wrong.
Right.
You can't. Because as we heard from Tom Shepard's definition, definition of prayer on a quantum level is whoever's praying. So pray as best you can right now and love yourself and be grateful for that. And if you want to be more and more effective with how prayer works in your life, continue, like anything, continue practicing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and do it more regularly, and it will come along so that you're even stronger in these times when you need to really lean on it, you know, when there's a global pandemic and fear going on right now. So maybe this is a wake-up call for any of us to say, I want to double down on my prayer practice,
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
Doing it wrong. No doing it wrong. Sometimes we say the prayer police are around.
Say that again.
Sometimes we say the prayer police are on duty, you know,
Oh.
watching the, are you praying right? And while there is a more of a unity way of praying, you know, so even within the bounds of there's no way of doing it wrong. Well, if you're going to be a prayer chaplain in unity or work for silent unity, now there are some guidelines that we do want you to follow that make it more effective.
Right.
Individually, I don't want people to be afraid to use their words. And if you're on this path and you are even questioning that, then say, hey, you know, can you help me make this more of an affirmative prayer? This wasn't a wrong prayer. This wasn't a bad prayer. I just want to make it more affirmative. Can you help me do that?
Mm-hmm. Right.
The word, pray any way that works for you.
Yeah.
Just get started.
Mhm.
Dive in. And as you are taught, I know, Bobby, in the Prayer Chaplain program, it's more about the feeling and the intent anyway.
Right. 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 It's just holding the high watch, and holding for the other person what they may not be able to see right now for themselves.
Yes, exactly. Say that again.
It's holding the high watch and holding in the highest and best for them when they can't see it themselves.
That's it. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bobby. That's
And
the
I'm sure
final.
our government can't see it for itself right now, so I need to raise my level of consciousness to get it up there, so that I'm putting out that kind of energy, not the negative kind of energy.
Wow, that was beautiful. That was a prayer right there. I now raise up my consciousness to put out that energy to our government right now.
Right.
That's a true statement. I am rising up in consciousness to send this out to the government, or however you worded that. That was a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Thank you. That's the final word, raising up our consciousness, holding the high watch. Well, let's bring it back full circle. We kind of just did, but let's bring it back full circle for a final prayer. I'm going to switch out then of my sharing and come back online to say it wouldn't be a proper prayer class if we didn't close it in prayer. So Bobby, how about we tag team and do it together? I mean, I have an expert on the line. I might as well use her. So I'll start us off, and then you comfortable adding in some prayer?
Sure.
Okay. A prayer of thanksgiving. Grateful for this time. Grateful for Bobby to capture this, to send this out to those who would like to watch. And we continue to hold our government and those affected by the virus right now in our hearts, and know the truth that we've always known, that goodness and health and we are rising up in our consciousness, and I send that out to those in need and turn it over to Bobby.
We know and affirm that the Christ Spirit in you is your source of strength and wholeness. You do not walk this path alone. God's presence is there to guide you every step of the way, up the hills and down the hills and through the valleys. You are the light of God in expression, and you are whole and holy, and you are peaceful, wise, loving, and free. And so it is.
And so it is. That was beautiful, Bobby. It brought tears. I love that. Up the hills and down the hills and through the valleys. That was really beautiful. I felt it.
Oh.
Well, thank you for being on the call. Thank you for being the student.
Well, I appreciated it. I got today and I thought, oh, I've got to try to sign into that. Like I said, I started at 10:06 and then was going back and forth between Messenger and phone and trying to get it to my computer, and so it was crazy. But I've been enjoying your Facebook posts and everything else. So it's been great just connecting with you again like this.
I do too, and I just, as I keep saying, I love seeing your name pop up. When I see friends, I'm like, oh, yay, we're connected, and doing my part, and you're doing your part too. So thank you for praying, and blessings to everyone.
Blessings.
Them, say hi, and we are grateful to Zoom, and to those of you who are watching, Bobby and I say adios.
Adios.